Welcome, friends,
to the How to Heretic.
I am Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear, that's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles! And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get one that we know of, so you'd better make the most of it.
Woohoo!
well, good people of Earth, welcome back to the three-part uncledom of your dreams.
Yeah, you know what? I think we should talk about religion in unreverent ways this week.
I don't care for that.
I like that model.
I think there's a risk.
The backlash.
There's a risk. Uncle Dan, you're gonna talk about something that apparently you did not find confusing.
No, it's the simplest of all the things. What could be simpler than religion and the graveyard of the gods?
And I'm going to talk about where you may end up if you do speak about religion irreverently. And boy, I sure hope you don't.
Yeah.
And before the end of this podcast, I will betray one of you.
So just a same old thing.
Yep.
Just like every old
A
week.
normal day here at the How to Heretic.
Well, let us proceed to the irreverence.
Ta-ta!
Uncle Doug,
Uncle Mark.
did you ever long for the olden days when things were just simpler?
It was a better time.
It was a better time when
Most of the time I do.
rather than one god there were 9,000, and it was just, I don't know, it was a simpler time.
I don't know about simpler. I mean, it may have been. It was. I don't know. But it was a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How far back you thinking?
Well,
Should we go back a couple thousand years?
Let's go back 3,000
why not?
years.
Some-ish
Let's
years?
go to the
4,000 years, maybe?
Let's go to the overgrown end of the graveyard of the gods and see what we can find.
I'll take you there.
All right.
Fellas,
Yes.
for today's foray into the graveyard, I'm launching into the Aeneid. That's right. We're going top-tier Egyptian today. None of those goofy lesser gods. We're doing a 100% bona fide major god.
All right.
And the Aeneid, as you both obviously know, is the most important out of a whole bunch of groupings of gods known in the ancient Egyptian as Pesagets. Now, as you are well aware, Uncle Mark, a Pesaget, which is spelled PSDT in the hieroglyphics because, and this is true, it is so ancient that they hadn't invented vowels yet.
Oh, Jesus.
It is a collection of how many gods?
47.
That's right, 9. And Aeneid is one of those wonderful words that comes to us from the Greek via Latin, and it also means a group of 9. So, Uncle Doug, that means that the great Pesaget, the highest of all the Pesagets, the Aeneid of ancient Egyptian gods, is a collection of... That's right.
87.
10 gods. Okay.
All I know
That's right.
is when you're a Pesaget, you're always a Pesaget.
That's right.
From
You're
your
a
first dying day
Pesaget
to your
to
last cigarette.
That's right.
From your first papyri to your last
Ba-doo-doo-doo-doo.
fire at the Library of
This is
Alexandria.
the second episode we've referenced Guys and Dolls.
I do think
That's not, guys. Oh my God! Get out!
I do think it's strangely appropriate though because the Egyptian gods did like to dance fight. Anyway, moving right along. So yes, sometimes it's 9, but it can be a little tricky in terms of how many gods are in the Aeneid or Pesaget. Some scholars have written out explanations for why they include more than the name would suggest. Most articles I read, though, I'm pretty sure they were just hoping I wouldn't count. So, the Aeneid are the 9 great gods plus 1 who participated in the creation of the world, according to those in the ancient city of Heliopolis.
So you got your Ra, you got your Osiris, you got your Horus, you got
Let's just relax for a minute.
Okay,
just relax.
I'm pretty excited about.
Trust me, we don't know anything.
The big 9.
We're going to get into this. Heliopolis, incidentally, is the Latinized form of the Greek name for the city of Lower Egypt that locals called Iunu, which meant the Pillars. Now it's just a suburb about 20 miles northeast of downtown Cairo. Does Cairo have a downtown? I don't know.
I would assume they do.
Big-ass city, yeah.
Anyway, Heliopolis, from the Greek Helios, meaning sun, and polis, meaning city. The city of the sun, because it was there that the people really started worshiping the Egyptian sun god,
Ra.
That's right, Atum, who came to be identified with Ra. And that word identified plays a large role in the headache that was my research for this, because these fucking gods will not stay put. Here's the thing. I wanted to talk today about Atum's great-granddaughter, Isis. I read a fun little story about her, and I thought she'd be perfect candidate for this segment. But as is so often the case with these ancient gods, the stories got garbled along the way. They got mixed up. They mixed up one god with another. They confused themselves and each other, and now we're left to pick up the pieces. So, who is Isis? Well, first I should say that Isis is her Greek name. I'm really getting obsessed with this, with the whole languages thing. Her Egyptian name was Aset, or Ast, or Iset, or Uset, because vowels.
Right.
She was the daughter of the earth god Geb and the sky goddess Nut. Listen, once I got deep enough into my research, I stopped looking up pronunciations. Don't at me. Sister of Set, Nephthys, Horus the Elder, and the very famous Osiris.
Yes.
Now, try not to get too puritanical, because we're about to go all Cersei and Jaime here. Because even though Osiris was Isis's brother, he was also her husband. Usually. I'm going now.
This is unexceptional in pantheons.
Yeah.
Incest is part of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Except that maybe he was her husband or whatever. Here we go. I'm just going to now read you a direct quote from a website called ancientegyptonline.co.uk, because I really want you to understand what I've been up against here. Quote, because of her association with the throne, Isis was sometimes considered to be the wife of Horus the Elder, the patron of the living pharaoh. Ra and Horus were closely associated during the early Egyptian history, while Isis was closely associated with Hathor, who was described as the mother or the wife of Horus or Ra, and so Isis can also be considered to be the wife of Ra or Horus. Everything clear? Good.
This is kind of like reading early Mormon history.
Oh my God. Everybody is everybody else and was also married to everybody else and is also the parent
child.
of everybody else and the child.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So.
Look, they're a tight-knit group. We can leave it at that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So all of this was kind of cleaned up a little bit later on, when they all seemed to have decided that Isis was, in fact, the granddaughter of Ra Atum. Those two got associated.
Yeah.
The wife of Osiris and the mother of Horus. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Now.
Phew. So Ra Atum is one god. It's like Time Warner.
Yeah, exactly.
Merger.
It's
Yeah.
like Time Warner.
It is like that. They literally did start just merge at some point.
Yeah.
They became the same guy eventually. Which, boy, that's the story of my life. Eventually, the mythology of Heliopolis was adopted as the national religion, presumably because of its simplicity and easy-to-follow narrative structure. And Osiris was rocketed to the top of the Billboard God charts, becoming King God of Egypt.
Osiris.
Osiris was, yeah. Isis was his loving wife.
Above Atun Ra.
Oh, well, he was their great-grandpa or something. So,
Okay.
So, it was like, he had his day. He had his moment.
Okay, gotcha.
Isis was his wife and a god queen, and she was this paragon of good womanliness. She taught all the women trades like weaving and baking, and your favorite, Uncle Doug, beer brewing.
Hey-o.
And everything was lovely, but their brother Set, remember that they were all siblings, was grumpy, and he wanted to be king himself. So he plotted to kill Osiris.
So he was upset.
Ah.
No.
Aenid puns. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not 100% sure how he did it, but I'm pretty sure it was one of those things where he got a big box and he propped it up with a stick attached to a string.
Yeah.
And then he put Osiris's favorite food under the box. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking like, Cap'n Crunch or something.
Probably falafel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Some papyrus. I don't know. What do they eat?
I don't think papyrus.
You don't know. And waited. And so he waited behind a bush, and then he got him.
Yeah.
However he got him into it, he did trap Osiris in a wooden box, coated it with lead, and chucked it into the Nile, killing him. So now all hail King Set. But Isis was pissed. So she scoured the whole world looking for her husband and eventually found the box. How she knew there was a husband in it, I do not know.
So she searched the whole world, and it turned out he was in the Nile, like 15 feet away.
Yeah.
Well, it was actually out of Egypt. It was a different part of the Nile, so she had to look a ways. Anyway,
Down probably in the Nubian region.
New bet. All right, and she brings the box back home, which pissed Set off. He set off. Anyway, Set was pissed. He cut Osiris.
We should start this over. This
is just done.
We're just so stale.
I'm just ending it now. Yeah. Anyway, so Set's reaction was to cut Osiris's dead body into a bunch of pieces and scatter them all over the world.
There you go. Game, set, and match.
God damn it. Enough Set jokes. I'm going to call him Seth now because half of the things refer to him
I'm
as
just not
Seth.
going to say anything the rest of this segment, as if I've left.
Uncle Mark has checked out. He did not know, however, he underestimated his sister's OCD because Isis went out and first of all, she turned into a bird and she enlisted the help of her sister Nephthys, and they went out and looked all over the world and found every piece of Osiris except one. Who wants to guess what part of Osiris
Is Willie.
His penis! They did not find his ding-dong, so
it's still out there.
I think in one version of it, it was eaten by a fish. So there you go. The type of fish really says a lot about like
Patreon goal. I think if we get to 9,000 patrons, we will find Osiris's penis.
We will.
I think the type of fish is by definition a blowfish.
Oh my God! What the fuck is happening?
Okay, let's get through this.
All right.
So she was undaunted by the lack of a member and bandaged him up and put him back together. And fashioned a new cock for him out of gold.
Oh.
No word on whether she was true to his original size and shape.
He got an upgrade.
Yeah,
she fudged a little on the thing. But
totally Jamie
definitely-
Lannister.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it was Jamie Lannister. That's right. Then she did a little kooky goddess magic. And bibbidi Lorena bobbidi boo, we got the world's first zombie. Woo! So, and he really was pretty horrifying, apparently. Never actually really alive again, sort of a Khal Drogo sort of thing. But also, apparently, not dead enough for her dirty, dirty purposes, because whoopsie doodle, she necrophiliac garped herself a brand new baby boy.
Uh-oh.
So wait, the golden penis got her pregnant?
Uh-huh. And that's how we get little Horus.
Oh.
Little baby Horus.
Yeah.
Isn't he cute?
So did he go settle shit with Set?
Well, that's the plan. Yes. He's got his mother's green eyes and his dad's golden dong. Anyway, the short version of the rest of the story is that Osiris went on to become king of the underworld, which, what an overachiever, that guy.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And Isis had baby Horus and hid him from Uncle Set until he was old enough to become ruler of everything, or until he was old enough to challenge him for his father's throne, and then became ruler of everything forever and ever. Amen. And that's basically the story. There's a whole bunch of stories about her hiding Horus in the reeds and fighting off scorpions and snakes and whatever. There's a lot of other stories about her. She became this sort of paragon, as I said, of motherhood and womanlyhood. And family life was really important in Egyptian times, so that was actually a really big deal. She also had, by the way, she wasn't just a good role model for mothers, though. She had, like, the best of all of the magic of all the gods, including at one point, apparently, having been beheaded by her own son Horus, and then, getting better.
She's got the power, man.
Yeah, exactly. She fixed herself by attaching a cow's head to her body, beating Ganesha to the animal-headed punch by well over 2,000 years.
No kidding.
So good for her.
Yeah, for the fact that family life was so important in Egypt, I guess they created a pantheon to show how not to be.
Right, exactly.
Right? Do not emulate these people.
Marry your brother, get decapitated by your son.
Yeah.
It's just good family.
Get a gold dick.
But if you see images of Isis with the sort of big horns coming off of her head, that's that cow thing.
Gotcha.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So there you go.
She's having a bit of a branding issue these days.
But
ISIS. No, I mean, hope she hires a good PR firm.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Oh, well, because of the other ISIS.
Because of the other
Yeah,
ISIS.
Yeah. You're talking, of course, about Archer and his...
that as well.
Anyway, as an art major, Uncle Mark,
Yes.
it won't surprise you at all to learn that many theorize that Isis and Horus, the baby Horus, super influenced the creation of the Jesus-Mary mythos.
Right.
And the images and statues of Isis and Horus then became the basis for much of the Jesus and Mary iconography. Except that Mary was little more than a demure, mostly silent demigod vending machine, and Isis was a legitimate badass.
Right. And I swear that there's something in the ISIS story that inspired the Moses story. Something
Probably
about
hiding the baby
It's
in
the
the
hiding
reeds.
the baby in the reeds.
Yeah.
That's
that was-
definitely part of that.
Yeah. Because they were all, the entire region was just borrowing, and stealing each other's gods. Then they'd intermarry, much like the people of the region.
Then they'd become their own grandpa.
Then they have abominable children that they have to hide in the bushes, and then they Ben-Hur.
Yeah, right. And then they make graphs of like the family tree of gods, and they call it the Aeneid, and they say that there are 9 of them, and there are 10. And I'm thinking, that thing took me like 20 minutes of research just to wrap my head around why there were not 10 gods.
You're right. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah,
Because it says 10. There must have.
I'm like reading all about these Pesajets, and it says 9, and the Pesajet means 9, and Aeneid means 9, and I'm like,
There's 10.
yeah, or Ennead. I don't know. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, and yeah, I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I meant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Just kept doing it and getting madder and madder every time I did it.
Well,
anyway,
I'm sorry this upset you.
well, that's okay. I will have my revenge by cutting off someone's head and putting a cow on a penis.
Putting a gold dick on it.
So there you have it. That's a little bit about ISIS.
The completely not confusing
Right.
story of
Exactly.
someone who might be ISIS.
Right. Or whatever her fucking name is.
So let's put her back in the ground and continue on down the Nile.
Right on.
Uncle Doug,
Uncle Dan,
go to hell.
you go to hell.
Okay. We'll both.
Moving on.
Come on, fellas. You can all go to hell.
Oh, yay. It's a hell. There's a hell for everybody.
It's literally a hell. There's a lid for every pot.
Yes.
And there is a hell for everybody. And
Uncle Mark, you're gonna teach us about
Yeah.
a hell? You're gonna take us to hell?
I'm going to take us south of the border.
And here I am without a handbasket.
Well, we can pick one up along the way. So, guys, we spend a significant amount of time uncling around in the religious absurdities of the so-called Western or Old World canon,
Sure.
right? Meaning stories from whichever version of the Bible Doug is speed dating at the time. Assorted Greek stuff, having a laugh about Mormonism and Scientology, etc. And sure, it's all fun, and it's a target-rich environment. But remember, the Abrahamic religions and their ghastly offspring are far from the only crazy ideas out there. And they aren't the only ones with concepts of the afterlife that merit a look-see. So, if you guys remember, as I mentioned way back in episode 25, when I talked about the peculiar gods called the 400 Boys, Mayan stuff has a special place in my heart, which I'm now just realizing is a very on-brand organ to hold all of my nostalgic Mayan sentiments in. So today I want to talk about the extremely unpleasant Mayan underworld / afterlife, Xibalba. It's an amazing story and just a cool word.
I just love that you said it, and both Doug and I looked at each other and went, there's a joke there, but neither of us can come up with it.
I thought it was a Ricky Martin song. Xibalba? Or is that She Bangs?
So it's spelled Xibalba, which doesn't matter half a cup of spit because it was never meant to be written in our alphabet, but I think it's cool anyway. So before we dive into the madness of this Mesoamerican hell, it's nothing short of a long list of secular miracles that we have any info about it at all. Because after Conquistador Pedro Alvarado pranced into Guatemala in 1524 and informed the locals that all their shit belonged to Spain, Spain now via killing nearly everybody, the already deeply diminished Mayan kingdoms were culturally wiped out. The remoteness of some highland villages preserved the language, etc., but for the most part the Mayan way of life was no more. So it's rather incredible that about 175 years later, when a priest named Father Jimenez arrived on the scene of the crime, that there was an oral tradition of Mayan myth and culture left for him to write down.
Yeah.
Even more miraculous that there was a Catholic cleric willing to give two shits about recording a culture that all of his co-religionists were trying to destroy with both hands.
Now, how convinced are we that this wasn't just some Mayan villagers fucking with him?
Well, in very much like, who was that we were talking about that time?
It was I forget, but the whole thing could possibly it was the Hopi.
The Hopi, that's
talking
right.
about their afterlife and their religion could have all just been them fucking with the
anthropologist, right? And the anthropologist is like, just so you know, they might have been fucking with me. Exactly. Right? Which would be beautiful.
Which is always the case.
So
I think that's a blanket statement across all anthropology. You guys, they could just be fucking with us.
Well, and I think that's a great question. I do think that there have been, there's so little left of the Mayan writing, except in their massive monumental architecture. But I think there are corroborating fragments to what I'm about to tell you. So Mayan history was recorded in, I use air quotes, books or codices, which are these really beautiful bifold, kind of flat plaster and bark scrolls that are covered with glyphs on both sides. And the Spanish burned all they could get their hands on, sometimes in these massive bonfires of hundreds and hundreds of these codices.
The Spanish could not abide words they couldn't read.
And they were chilly.
Well, you could catch a cold.
Because there's one thing about the Yucatan, it is cold. So they burned all they could, and they came very close to annihilating one of the world's most unique civilization stories about itself. And I think there are less than 10 of these codices left in the world.
Wow.
Whether partial or complete. So, even crazier is that Father Jimenez's single handwritten copy of this massive oral history survived revolutions, several changing of hands, a theft, selling and reselling, and then nearly disappearing forever in dusty obscurity at the back of a private collection in, I think, Pennsylvania.
Dusty Obscurity, by the way, is my drag name.
I love Dusty. She's a curvy gal.
she is,
but
not a handsome woman.
She's a handsome woman, but she's striking in the right light.
Yes, indeed.
Near darkness. I've seen you in drag.
You have indeed.
Yeah. We'll talk about that on another segment, and that'll be another hell. But after that series of fortunate events,
for whom?
What we know as the Popol Vuh, translated as the Book of the People, exists to edify and amuse our podcast audience. So, the Popol Vuh is a history and mythology of the Quiche Mayans of Guatemala. If you know anything about Mayan civilization, you can correctly guess it's a complicated and bloody tale. Mayans, or to our Mormon friends, lapsed Jews, were nothing like the Catholic conquistadors that appeared on the scene to steal their shit, enslave whoever they could, and kill those they couldn't. But they did share a common belief in blood magic, that the soul and life itself was transported in the blood, and that the ritual spilling and consuming of blood was to commune with the gods. And they shared a bleak and dismal view of the afterlife, so it's hard to believe that they didn't get along. So the story of the underworld of Xibalba is a large portion of the Popol Vuh. Mayan cosmology was very complex and sophisticated. They are believed to be the first civilization on Earth to conceive of the concept of zero.
Yes.
They were unrivaled astronomers and mathematicians.
Wait, so how many civilizations before them had come up with the number 0? You can't say it. Get it?
It's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible to say. Less than one. So anyway, they could predict, recurring astronomical events like comets and that sort of thing, hundreds of years into the future. Their art and architecture were madly brilliant, etc. But unlike the Judaic ideas from the Eastern Mediterranean and the Levant that placed God above man, man above nature in a vertical axis, theirs was much more horizontal. They saw humanity as very much just another cog of birth and death in the brutal cycles of nature, and the gods, personifications of those cruel forces, as just another set of mouths that needed to be fed and appeased. Where Christians despise nature as cursed and vile, and man's natural self as debased, the Mayans saw life and death and the beyond as the natural struggle to survive and the inevitability of that failure to survive. So, also, like the Mesopotamians and the early Greek ideas of death and the afterlife, which we'll talk about it in segments another time, no accumulation of great deeds or dreadful sin made a lick of difference in the Mayan underworld. Kings and corn farmers were fucked in equal measure. So after the pain and daily trials of mortal life, a new set of even more hideous challenges awaited everyone in Xibalba.
Oh, how fun!
Yeah, it's seriously, you just started at zero. Didn't matter what you did or who you were.
So egalitarian, the Mayans.
They were very egalitarian.
So they came up with 0.
Because that's where we all start. After we die.
Maybe it was a spiritual rather than a mathematical invention. So because of just the topography and geological forces, much of the Mayan world is dotted with these vertical caves that have turned into freshwater cisterns called cenotes. These were believed to be the entrances to the very real underworld of Xibalba. So at the same time the Mayans depended on the cenotes for their water supplies, they were terrified by them. I guess much like Mormon missionaries aren't supposed to go swimming, right? The devil controls the cenote. So the great Mayan cities, places like Palenque and Chichen Itza and Copan, all have these weird rectangular kind of stadium-looking things with these big broad lawns that have angled walls on their long axis. So these fields are for an insane ball game called Pok-to-Pok, which involved using one's hips, shins, and shoulders to try to get a 9-pound natural rubber ball through a stone hoop up on the walls. So
wow.
Yeah, it's I can't even imagine that was possible, but such was the game.
We've seen a couple of those.
Well, I've seen the one at Copan. I don't know if I've seen another one, but I don't know if there was one at Quirigua. But anyway, it seems the goal was not only to get the ball through the hoop, but letting the ball hit the ground could lose you the game. And since the game was often a life or death contest, losing the game could mean losing your head, or your heart, or both. Either way, you're fucked.
Or your big rubber ball.
Or you take your ball and your head and go home. Anyway, the reason I bring up the ball court is because Mayans believed the lords of Xibalba lived right underneath them. And the game itself was a huge part of the story of Xibalba. So, speaking of the 12 lords of this wonderful underworld, and by the way, different scholars put the number of lords between 9 and 14, but who cares? They sound like a real picnic on a sunny summer afternoon. The boss lords are called One Death and Seven Death.
Okay.
And the rest of their gruesome group have names like Flying Scab and Gathered Blood, who give people blood maladies. Pus Demon and Jaundice Demon, who cause bodies to swell and rot. Bone Staff and Skull Staff, who make people into skeletons. My favorites. Sweepings Demon and Stabbing Demon, who hide in the unswept corners of people's houses and stab them to death. Sweeping was critically important in the Mayan world, apparently.
Yeah, I guess.
Yes.
And finally, wing and packstrap, who cause random travelers to cough up blood and die on the road.
Wow.
Those sound pretty terrible, but by far the scariest one is 7 death. And why is 7 so scary? Because 7, 8, 9.
Oh, God.
You're welcome.
for fuck's
I'm
sake.
out.
Oh, my God.
Bye, guys.
Kindergarten jokes. So imagine what the Christmas parties the Lords of Xibalba have. There is no good Secret Santa option. Do not go to their parties. Okay, so now we've met the cast. Let's get a look at the scenery. Much like the world above, Xibalba was a vast landscape of mountains, rivers, temples, etc. But because it's a spooky place, Xibalba literally translates to place of fright. The rivers are blood and pus, the temples are deadly traps, the forests are full of spinning knives, etc. Xibalba sounds like one of our patron heavens.
It's suddenly the Indiana Jones movies are making more sense.
It sounds like the movie Krull. Is what it sounds like.
Well, Kroll also invented the zero. So,
yes, it's true.
So upon a Mayan's sweet relief from their rather dangerous daily rigors and grind of mortal life, their spirit would enter Xibalba via the most convenient local cenote or cave, then find themselves having to cross first a river of scorpions, then a river of blood, then a river of pus. River of Pus, by the way, was my first English language techno folk album. Didn't sell a single copy. Anyway, if one made it across these liquid horrors, one would then have to choose the right path at one of many crossroads, and if you survived all of that, you would arrive at the house of the Lords of Xibalba. For some reason, they had these weird mannequins of themselves made to humiliate the dead, so you'd go in and start appealing to one of them, but it was a mannequin, and the rest of them would laugh.
Oh, great Lord. Yeah. And then they'd all be like,
yeah.
He doesn't even know.
So once you were properly belittled, you'd be invited to sit. But the bench would be a scorching hot stove.
They get you every time with that one.
So everybody would have a good laugh, and then you were sent off Running Man style to even deadlier amusements. And those amusements were 6 houses. Here we catch a glimpse of the universality of the idea of what we call hell across so many of the world's religious cultures. First was Dark House, with an impenetrable darkness. The second was Rattling House, an impossibly cold place with freezing hail, a little like the baroquely detailed Buddhist hell Naraka that we talked about in episode 7, where there's an entire plane of hell called Tuk 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 Tuk, because that's the sound of people's teeth chattering. The third house was called Jaguar House, a place crawling with ravenous jaguars, which I suppose is the final stop for cat fanciers like Uncle Doug.
I'm envisioning this street with these houses on it.
Yeah,
this is kind of, you're walking down and you move from house to
to
house.
me, it's kind of like a Halloween haunted house.
Yeah. Where you keep going into the different rooms, and you know somebody's going to jump out and startle you, and you're just
decapitate you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's the Jaguars. Okay.
So after you leave Jaguar House, the fourth house is called Bat House, a place full of deadly bats and one eccentric billionaire who makes them the talisman for his pain and revenge and assumes their identity to fight absurdly characterized villains in a dismal post-industrial cityscape. The fifth house is called Razor House.
Oh.
Obsidian blades whirl about in the air unpredictably.
But it's a great place to kill the White Walkers if you need to.
Yeah, exactly, and get a shave. And finally, a house of pain very close indeed to the loving Christian heart, the House of Heat, filled with fire and unimaginable warmth.
I just want to know, what happens if you get to the River of Scorpions and you're just like, nah,
I'm going to go back.
I'm not going to do it.
I don't know.
I've decided against, or, any of the things. At some point, what if you just stop?
The Popol Vuh is not heavily footnoted that way.
No.
So,
I just want to know who's prodding me to do this. I'll stay in the River of Blood. I'm fine with that.
and there's never...
It's nice.
It's warm.
Just floating around.
And when you get to the end of the kind of Xibalba story, there's no real reward for having survived all these things. It's just
there's no reward. There's no spur that.
I think it's a worldview that life is just fucking
Life
pain.
is just shit.
It's shit.
And then you die, And then there's more shit.
And then there's more shit.
It just keeps going.
And I think to your point, Uncle Dan, it's not that you choose to go forward through these things,
Right.
but like a haunted house, you're kind of seated on a cart that's moving forward through these things.
Oh my
Right,
God.
or it's just the crush of people behind you that are pushing you forward.
You
right?
keep yelling back, stop!
So I actually tried to.
It doesn't get better.
It's a
Just
river of
stop
pus.
pushing.
And I actually tried to look up what happens if you die during these. Like,
Yeah.
do you die and go through it all again like Donkey Kong, or or if you get killed here, do you finally just get to flee these awful dual lives of pain and just fucking die for good? Which seems, if that was the case, I would dive right into the River of Scorpions.
Yeah.
Right off the bat and be done with it. So,
And then you have to start over.
so there is one story of heroes triumphing over the tests of Xibalba, but only because, like Captain James Tiberius Kirk and the Kobayashi Maru, they cheated. It's a crazy tale, so here it is very briefly. One fine Mesoamerican day, a god named Hunapu and his brother were minding their maze when they were lured to Xibalba to play a game of Poctopoc, with the devious lords of the underworld as the opposing team.
Oh, wow.
They were tricked, and Hunapu was decapitated. His severed head was placed in a tree, which instantly sprung to life because he was a god. One of the lesser lords of the underworld, Blood Maiden, was passing by when the head lured her over and spit into her hands. From this, she became pregnant and gave birth to the twins Xibalanque and Hunapu.
Right.
Here again, like our Christian friends, the Mayans clearly had no clue how human reproduction works.
Also, this is the exact plot of Space Jam.
Is it really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Space Jam 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
More jam. One day, the boys, master ball players, these twin boys, angered the gods with too raucous a game of Poctopoc. And remember, the House of the Lords is right under the ball court. So the angry lords summoned the boys to the underworld, where they played game after game with the treacherous lords, but bested them every time. Infuriated, the lords set upon the twins to kill them, but the twins leapt into a fire, killing themselves. How this was better, I have no idea. But the gods of the earth and sky were pissed, so they hit the reset and brought the twins back to life. So they returned to Xibalba, dressed as dancers, and basically fucked with the lords until they were able to trick them into letting them kill them because they said they had this really cool resurrection trick. So then they didn't use the trick, left them dead, took all their treasure and shit, stole a canoe, and went back into the mortal world. So we may do the whole hero twin story properly another time, but it's kind of impossible to tell the story of Xibalba without it.
I'm pretty sure that was actually the plot of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, wasn't it?
I didn't
think
know
it
you
was.
could cross a river of scorpions on a canoe.
It's a very special canoe. Yeah, it's got a very thick skin. So, now as our astute listeners surely know, Xibalba is more than just the gruesome underworld of a nearly lost civilization. But just as famously, it's an American hardcore metal band from beautiful Pomona, California. Let us close our strange meditation on this exotic afterlife with the final chorus from their 2012 Not Smash single, Sentenced. I heard screams. I covered my ears. I saw your tears. I looked away. Sentenced, imprisoned in this mind. Sentenced, no end in sight. Place of fear, place of tears. Only the devil dwells here. Consumed by the streets, consumed by anger. No end in sight. Overwhelmed in this prisoned mind.
Poetry.
Really makes you think, I guess.
Yeah.
I was waiting for them to talk about blowing bubbles in the river of pus, but they didn't do it.
I didn't use that particular song.
Oh, okay. That was another verse.
Bubbles in the River of Pus, because it's an instrumental. There's
Right,
no lyrics.
yeah.
So that's Xibalba, guys.
There it is.
Theremin instrumental.
We can throw that on the pile of hopeless, terrible afterlives.
Yeah, wow. That was I'm kind of glad the Spaniards got rid of that culture. That it's depressing.
Yeah, the Catholic afterlife is far superior.
Far better.
Far better.
Well, at least there's a chance of like something less miserable.
But I would say in the Mayan afterlife there are sports entertainments.
Well, at least there's basketball, so that's nice.
There's weird basketball. So that's Xibalba, everybody. Try not to go there.
Oof, moving on.
Brethren, here we are, and we are grateful people.
Wow, you started to sound really Mormon there just for a second.
We are a grateful people.
Well, and it's just
we need food to nourish and strengthen our bodies.
I just like the idea that Mormons would always say we will and we are and we feel, and they would just whoever was at the pulpit would talk, and he would talk for all of us.
Yeah.
We are all very grateful to Sister Johnson for coming out to the. Fuck you! I get to decide if I'm grateful or not.
I am sick of Sister Johnson.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sick of her bull crap.
Of her.
No, you do not get to feel independently of we, because that is not the point of the beehive.
That's
right.
True.
Yes, we are all drones to the strange queen
It's the loyal we.
that was Brigham Young.
Yes,
That
indeed.
aside,
That
we are indeed grateful for the continued patronage and support of some wonderful listeners out there.
That is very, very true. We have some new people to thank, and let's do so right now. Thanks so much to Michelle and to Killer Cotton.
Killer Cotton.
And I have to give a patron saint, a improvised on-the-spot patron saint, to Mormon Happy Hour.
Oh, yes, a sister podcast here in the state.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
And Mormon Happy Hour, you guys, well, here goes. Your patron saint is Saint Laverne of Lower Iron County, Utah.
There you go.
She is the patron saint of Jello-based desserts.
Yes.
Of I'm going to say avenging angels.
Sure.
And also floral colored everything.
Including those beautiful swimming caps that ladies of a certain age wear.
Oh,
when they swim in the fast lane at the public pool.
As they fall into the pool one at a time.
Right, yes, indeed.
Well, congratulations.
If you too would like to have us make up a saint for you on the spot or receive your own personal heaven, be sure to go to patreon.com and see what that takes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you can or can't do that, please go anywhere you can give us a 5-star review. Push the button, and then if you have to go to work or you have to go out exploring somewhere, just put something heavy on the button, like a bowling pin or a kettlebell, and just let it keep giving us stars, because our sky can never have enough of them.
Yeah, here's what you guys have to realize is that, like, this is the only way that patronage is the only way that we get paid anything for doing this thing. So it's nice when you guys give to us, and if you do want to give us a rating, you have to give us 5 stars, because you have to counteract ding-dongs who will give us 1 star just because of the content, not because of the quality.
Right.
Yeah.
So
a guy gave us 1 star because he said, I thought this was an atheism podcast, but it's really just these 3 guys saying how morally superior they are, to which I laugh and say, do you not listen to atheist podcasts, my dear?
Yes, indeed. So go out there, save our lives, do things for us.
Fight the good fight.
And
live, learn, love, eat, pray, fuck.
And know that we love you. And let's move on to another thing.
Yes. Uncle Dan.
I before the day this episode is over, I will betray one of you.
Well, as long as there is a precious metal of some quantity involved, I don't see that that's a problem. I mean,
It feels right.
just make it worth it.
Potato.
Yeah.
Feels right.
Just with the exchange rate.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Give it unto Caesar. I don't know. What are we talking about?
it's all in there somewhere.
Uncle Doug, help us out.
All right.
What the hell are we talking about?
Well, the other day I was listening to some old U2. Don't add me. Don't call me a dad rock fan. But on Octoon Baby,
you are the appropriate amount of old for that.
yeah,
It's okay.
exactly. I don't apologize.
It's our generation's version of, like, yeah, the Stones are good, but the Eagles were the best band of all time.
Just hate the Eagles, man.
Oh my God, that's true. The U2 is like our generation's Eagles.
Yeah,
It's-
totally is.
Oh God.
So there's a song.
They're better than the Eagles.
Yes. There's a song on Octoon Baby called Until the End of the World, which I hadn't realized until I was kind of just paying attention to it a little while back, is actually a conversation between Judas and Jesus, which is kind of interesting.
Huh.
And again, side note, U2 is a massive Christian rock band. If you didn't know that,
I didn't know that.
it really is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they almost took a diversion early on into like literal praise rock.
Yep.
Like
Wow.
church rock band.
And what was the drummer?
No, it was Adam
Clayton, I think.
Adam Clayton, the bass player, was like, "You do that, and I'm fucking out of here."
Exactly.
So I think that they are
they veered away from like full on praise rock.
I think they used the mythology
Yes.
as part of their storytelling. Yes.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about you two or anyone else. So we're here to talk about Judas Iscariot. I thought it'd be fun to kind of take a dive
Judas!
into good old Judas.
Yes.
So Judas Iscariot was a dirty, filthy Jew.
Oh, boy.
Okay, we're starting that way.
Let me back up a little bit.
Drop the curtain.
By modern standards, anybody in first century Judea would be considered filthy. And he, like the rest of the apostles and Jesus himself, was a Jew. So,
Yes. Okay, great.
So, it's not a slur, it's just a fact. Judas Iscariot was one of the original 12 apostles, and he's the one that ends up betraying Jesus, as we all know, which in and of itself is kind of a weird thing, which we'll talk about. And Judas hands over Jesus to the Jewish mob or authorities, depending on which version of the story we're talking about. Judas is mentioned in all 4 Gospels and the book of Acts. And for a lot of Bible scholars and apologists, the fact that he's in all 4 Gospels is proof that he really existed.
I love that because what that says is that the Bible is so fucked up. And
Any consistency has got to be true.
Like, wow, this one made it through every thread.
Right.
This one's got to be real.
Yeah, but
because the rest of it is such a god-awful mess that it's ridiculous.
That's like saying that Thanos appears in every version, every movie of the Avengers, therefore.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Which he does.
Well, and we've already established that the Gospels are like 4 horrible siblings that just fight over everything and agree on nothing.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is certainly one of those examples.
Right.
So yeah, he appears in all 4 stories. The versions of the story that agree across the 4 platforms are that he betrays Jesus and then identifies Jesus in the garden.
Right.
To a certain extent. Judah, the name, actually means God is praised. It's a very, very common name in that area at the time, and it's even common throughout the New Testament. There's several other people named Judas in the New Testament.
Okay.
Iscariot likely means... What's that?
That's confusing, but okay.
It is. Iscariot likely means he's from the village of Kerioth.
Oh.
But that is far from accepted. It could also be a derivation of the Latin word sicarius, meaning daggerman or assassin. And then there's several other possible meanings for the name, so that's not agreed upon.
Isn't there a movie called Sicarius? Or
Yeah, that's where our president gets all his immigration facts from.
That's right.
Yes.
Since the earliest days of Christianity to the modern day, the nature of Judas and his role in the narrative has been disputed. Take 2 very perfect examples from our day, the Last Temptation of Christ and the Passion of the Christ. In the Last Temptation...
those aren't the same movie?
They're not at all.
Very much not. Yeah.
In the last
One is a Scorsese movie.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
We know how you guys feel about Scorsese movies.
Yes, we have a lot of fun with those.
In The Last Temptation, Judas, played by Harvey Keitel for some reason,
Yeah.
is the only apostle who fully understands what has to happen, and Jesus gives him the burden of turning him in.
Yes, he was the only Judas from Jersey City, the only apostle from... I don't want to do it, Lord. I don't want to do it.
Judas a Hoboken.
That's right. Basically, Judas is the hero of the story in The Last Temptation. In The Passion, Judas, played by, of course, Luca Leonello, is a filthy, money-grubbing Jewy McJewface. He's pure one-dimensional evil.
Right.
So there's kind
He's
of
a total Shylock.
Yeah. You guys have seen that movie, right?
I have not.
I'm not into torture porn, and
You would not like that movie.
Yeah.
Not until the Gam Boys make us watch it.
That's right.
They probably will. They'll probably make us do
sure
something
they will,
that awful.
yeah.
It is an uncomfortable watch.
Yeah.
The Jew, Mel Gibson puts a little bit too much emphasis on the Jew part of the story. So let's take the story chronologically. Let's go back and look at the story as it exists in the New Testament and take that piece by piece.
Oh, goody.
We're in the new international version again.
Whoa,
Turning it to
NIV. I feel so fresh and alive.
Feel liberated. So let's take them chronologically. The first version of the story is in Mark. Judas goes to the priests and offers to betray Jesus, to which they offer him unspecified money. There's no motivation ascribed to Judas. He just goes and decides to do it. Then, at the Last Supper, Jesus predicts that one of the 12 apostles will betray him and says it would be better to have not been born than to betray him. He doesn't identify who it is, and the apostles don't bother to figure out what's going on.
Let me ask a quick question.
Yeah.
And certainly, in Mark, it doesn't give any foreshadowing or character development at all. I don't know in the other Gospels. Is there anything in Judas's character leading up to this betrayal that says he's doubting
that he's doing steeple fingers off in the corner.
Right. Only in one version, and it's problematic.
Okay.
And we'll get to that.
All right.
Okay.
But not necessarily in the other version.
So
It's not like
prior to that, Judas is great.
it's not like
He's just a disciple.
well, he's a non-character. He's not even.
Oh.
Yeah, he's mentioned, but he doesn't do anything.
Right.
There's never really a motivation. Like Jesus never slights him or something that you would naturally think would lead to a falling out. No, none of that happens. So back to Mark. Judas later brings the armed mob to Gethsemane and gives the prearranged signal, calling Jesus a rabbi and kissing him, thus betraying him, and the Jews take him into custody. That's it. That's
So
Judas.
if I kiss a rabbi, the police will show up immediately. The Jewish
Yes.
police will show up immediately.
Yes, Mark, but that's because you're doing it against his will.
That's right.
Jesus consented.
So that's it. That's the first version of the story. That's it.
Okay.
Judas plays no further role. Okay, jumping into Luke. Kind of the same thing. The chief priests are looking for a way to get rid of Jesus, and wouldn't you know it, Satan enters Judas, and that's kind of what compels him to betray Jesus. Is Satan enters him? Why? Why him? Doesn't say.
Satan enters him.
So Judas didn't betray him at all in the second.
In the second version, Satan takes over Judas
Right.
and makes him do it. Right?
The devil made me do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, this whole devil concept has always been tricky because theoretically, you're still, even if the devil tempts you to do something, you're still responsible. But if the devil enters you,
Right.
are you responsible? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
When we'll talk about this, the whole question of free will is very hard to pin down in this story.
Right.
Anyway, so at the Last Supper, once again, Jesus predicts that one of them will betray him. They all wonder who it is, but no one does anything about it. And then Judas brings a crowd
Well,
to
it was
Gethsemane.
hard for them to talk because they were all sitting on that one side, and it's like, Simon.
You have to yell
couldn't
all
talk
the
to
way.
Thomas down at the other end.
It's so hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Judas brings a crowd to Gethsemane and tries to kiss Jesus, but Jesus
Did
stops
you say
him.
Gethsemane?
Gethsemane.
Okay.
Gethsemane.
Yeah.
Gethsemane.
Gethsemane.
I can't say it anymore.
We've ruined it.
The garden.
The blood garden.
He tries to kiss Jesus, but Jesus stops him and calls him out, and then Jesus is taken into custody.
Jesus stops him and is like, didn't you have a cold sore just like yesterday?
Exactly.
Don't kiss me.
I saw you kissing Barnabas just yesterday. And that's it. That's the end of Judas in the story. So
I saw Judas kissing Barnabas underneath
kosher meal
Gethsemane.
Cody, cut all of this out. Okay, Matthew. Here's where we get more of the familiar part of the story, as is kind of always the case with Matthew. There's actually color to it. Judas goes to the priest to betray Jesus. Why? We don't know. They offer him 30 pieces of silver. As a side note, any idea what the modern equivalent of 30 pieces of silver at the time is?
8 Bitcoin.
Not a lot. Less than $500.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So, at the Last Supper, Jesus announces that someone will betray him, and Judas says, "Surely you don't mean me," to which Jesus says, "You have said so." And nothing happens. Like the other apostles don't do anything about it. Anyway, so now...
Well, that is delightful. Like, that would be a good psychological trick. You get up in front of a group and you're like, one of you will betray me. And whoever goes, well, I mean, it's not going to be me, obviously. You're not talking about me, are you? Why would you say that?
Well, if you say so.
Oh, interesting. Joe.
Whoever leaves the tip at this meal is the one who betrayed me.
Exactly. Well, that's funny because that's actually not far off. Judas brings guards to Gethsemane. God damn it. Brings guards to the garden. Okay. Calls Jesus rabbi and kisses him to identify him. They take him away. Later on, when Judas...
Maybe kissing is the crime. What it said the kiss is this thing.
Yeah,
Right,
it's this
very
gay
strange.
kiss that suddenly they're like, let's arrest that guy.
Is it like from Godfather 2 where it's like it was you, Fredo?
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
But the thing is...
You broke my heart, Jesus.
You gave him the kiss of death.
This whole thing doesn't make... I mean, and we'll talk about this. Jesus had to fall into the Jewish authorities' hands to be crucified,
Right.
to fulfill blah, blah, blah. The vehicle that...
Wait, you said the Jewish authorities' hands?
Well, it was the Jews
It was
who
the
took him...
Romans that did it,
The
right?
Jews took him in the garden, and
But we blame the Jews.
Yes,
Right, I know.
Where have you been these past
I
1,500
know, I'm just
years?
trying to get it straight.
So the Jews take him in the garden, they slap him around, and then they turn him over to the Romans.
Okay, good.
And so, but Jesus needs to fall into the hands of the authorities somehow.
Right.
The vehicle for it in the Bible is Judas, right? I don't know why Judas has to betray him. Why can't the authorities just come get him? But further, I don't know why Judas has to point out Jesus so ornately.
He has. Well,
They all know who the fuck he is.
He's
Everybody
the
knows.
one Caucasian guy in the whole group.
Look for the blonde with long hair.
The guy with the Norwegian accent is clearly the king of the Jews.
I just love the idea that, you're right. A, why does he kiss him?
Yeah.
Instead of just pointing.
There he is.
That's the guy.
Yeah.
B, everybody knows who Jesus is.
Right.
He did that whole parade through town on a donkey.
Or two donkeys.
Or
depending on the version.
two donkeys. Or a tall donkey and a little like a big horse and little horse.
Yeah, and he caused a big scene at the temple.
Yeah, he flipped over all the tables at the temple.
He's been challenging the Pharisees in the streets all this time.
Literally,
They all know who he is.
they all know who he is. Judas does not have to be part of this.
So I don't know why Judas has to betray him, quote unquote, in the first place, or why he has to kiss him or point him out. I don't understand, but here it is.
He's working it out with the Jewish police. It's like, okay, so I'll just point to him. No, kiss him.
You gotta kiss him.
That's how we'll know.
Kiss him on the mouth.
Wait, he might be suspicious of you if you point at him. Here's what you do.
Right.
Don't tell us. Just go up and give him a little peck, just a little sweet thing, no tongue.
No open mouths. No.
Well, and if you show up with all these,
because there was no such thing as gall kissing yet.
Right.
Hello, French history buffs.
if you show up with a bunch of armed guards,
Not the worst.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
one listener's very happy about this. And if Judas was trying to protect himself from the other apostles, if you show up with a bunch of armed guards who end up taking Jesus away,
Yeah.
how you point out Jesus is not going to trick them.
Yeah, the rest of the group's not going to be like, how did they know?
I know. All right.
Let's see. We were having dinner. Then Judas kissed him.
Then
I
Judas-
don't know what's up.
Then Jesus said he's going to betray me, and then Judas left, and then Judas showed up with armed guards.
and they handed
what
Judas
happened?
a huge bag of silver.
And then
So just a normal
I just don't get it.
meal with the
Who
apostles.
could it have been? Okay, so back to the narrative.
And then Scooby and Shaggy pull off the I don't know,
Totally.
Thomas's face, and it was old man Carruthers the whole time.
So back to Matthew. When Judas hears that Jesus is to be crucified, he tries to return the silver to the chief priests, who won't take it. So Judas throws the silver at them and goes and hangs himself. So
Right.
first time we get a suicide in this story.
Wow.
So in Luke and Mark, no suicide, no death. He hangs himself in Matthew. So here's a weird thing. The priests pick up the silver and use it to purchase a field to bury foreigners. Okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? They're putting it to the common good.
But what a strange divergence, because you have to think, okay, Judas throws the silver and leaves.
Right.
And then they probably picked up the silver right then, and then they had to call a realtor and find the right field. Concurrently, Jesus is being crucified.
I feel like they convened some councils.
Yeah, that's
and we're
just-
like, how are we going to use? We've got a budget surplus because of this whole 30 silver thing.
That's kind of like
How do
the
we-
end of the city council meeting. Do we have any other business? Oh, we have a pile of foreigners. What need burying? Well, yeah, we have a little slush fund now. What the God, Bible?
Oh my God. Okay, so and then they call the field of blood. Whether that's, I don't know, because it was purchased with blood money, I guess.
What?
Yeah, I know. So
Okay.
So Matthew's description of the death as fulfillment of a prophecy spoken through Jeremiah the prophet is problematic because that prophecy doesn't exist in the book of Jeremiah or in the book of Zechariah. But whatever.
Okay,
So, great. All right.
Do you remember that long lost prophecy?
You can't even get your stupid prophecies right in your own book.
I know.
All right, John. Here's the book of John. Jesus is teaching it. This one's fun. Jesus is teaching his apostles and says, quote, "Have I not chosen you, the 12? Yet one of you is a devil." Again, nothing is done about this. Later, Jesus is having dinner.
Well, he chose them.
I know, right?
Also, can I just say,
Yeah.
hell of a way to make a dinner awkward.
I know, right?
That sounds like dinner with our parents.
Hey, you guys, I love all of you. You're all chosen. One of you's Satan.
One of you, it's a devil.
Thanksgiving in our house would be, we hate all of you, but we hate one more.
Exactly. All right, so here's to answer your question, Uncle Mark. Later, Jesus is having dinner at Lazarus' house. Yes, that Lazarus,
Okay.
the one he brought back from the dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mary pours out an entire pint of pure nard on Jesus' feet.
I was not ready for nard.
Oh, you gotta get the pure stuff. What you don't want is that unfiltered nard.
Did
that's
you say
really
a
gross.
pint?
A pint of nard. Nard sounds like somebody who drank beer with Brett Kavanaugh.
Oh my god! By the way, "Pint of Nard" is the title of my new death metal klezmer band album.
Pint of nard.
So she pours.
What is nard?
It's some kind of very expensive ointment.
It's an unguent.
It's exactly. So Mary
Did
pours.
his feet need so much nard?
I don't know. Well, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
And Judas himself
He might
asks
have had
that
some
question.
pretty nardy feet.
Yeah.
He does now.
It's possible to over nard.
So she pours out this pint of nard and then washes.
And then he got up to take a piss, and there was a terrible slip and fall.
She washes his feet with her hair. Judas takes
Oh, I
exception
remember
to
that
this.
part.
Yeah. Judas takes exception.
What an awkward dinner party! I'd be like, you know what? I'm fine. Could I just have a dish? I don't need
He's
your.
like, I don't want nard on my. Oh my god! I
Just a
didn't
dish
want
towel,
any
some
nard on
rando-
my. Oh god! You're wiping it with your hair. Oh my god! Okay, this is okay. Oh my god!
The orzo's really good.
So Judas takes exception to this, asking why the nards, why not sell the nard and give the money to the
That
poor.
is perfectly good nard.
It's perfectly good nard.
Dan, will you Google what nard is?
I won't. I refuse.
You have to take your safe search off.
It's a super smelly ointment.
Okay.
Yeah. So Judas says, why don't you sell the nard and give the money to the poor? Which sounds altruistic, but here's the great part. John, on an aside, makes sure to tell us that Judas does not care about the poor, but that he is the keeper of the money for the 12 apostles, and he's been skimming. Because he's a Jew. Remember,
He's
the book of John
Point of
is
order, they're all Jews. Doug just is a racist. But
right.
anyway.
But the book of John is particularly anti-Semitic, and here's a very good example of that. So we get a motivation, right? He's been skimming.
Right.
So he's been dishonest. We get a little bit of character to Judas. However, this interaction with Judas prompts one of the weirdest things Jesus ever said. So in response to Judas's objection, Jesus says, "You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me."
Okay.
Right.
Right.
And
So
I see.
so don't spare the nard.
I see conservative Christians on Twitter using that a lot.
Yeah.
Basically, their point of view is there's just nothing that can be done about the poor, so let's not do anything.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. By the way, nard would be the essential oil of the Himalayan spikenard, which is a also
better.
also known as also known as muskroot, and it's it's a flower. It's got a flower.
The more you know.
Hit images.
I don't know.
All right.
That's not a thing.
All right, so the Last Supper, this time before Passover, because we're in a different version of the fucking story, the devil enters Judas and prompts him to betray Jesus. Jesus predicts his betrayal, and in this version states that who he gives his piece of bread to is the person who's going to betray him.
Oh my God!
And he hands the piece of bread to Judas.
Again with the symbolic thing.
Judas just kind of lean away from Peter, like, "Well, I didn't think that was you."
He just looks right at the other guy,
Yeah.
the guy next to him.
Well,
Well,
and then-
take your bread, dummy.
And then he says to Judas,
I'm gluten intolerant. I couldn't take that. Thank you.
Couldn't eat another bite.
Jesus says to Judas,
I'll kiss you later.
Yeah, what you're about to do quickly. So Judas gets up and leaves. The apostles don't even fully understand what just happened and do nothing to stop Judas, so Judas is gone.
Right.
Judas shows up in the garden with a detachment of soldiers this time. And then in this version, there's no...
So these are presumably Roman soldiers.
no, these are Jewish soldiers. So in the
Okay.
previous versions, it's been a mob or just some people, and now it's soldiers.
Okay.
But Jewish soldiers.
Okay.
They show up. Judas doesn't finger him at all, so to speak. And Jesus says, "Why are you here? Who are you after?" The soldiers say Jesus, and Jesus says, "It's me!" So
Oh,
powerfully,
wow.
they all fall down. Then they get themselves together and take Jesus into custody. No kiss, no pointing him
Maybe
out.
they were overcome with the aroma of nard.
So that's it. No death. Now, a quick coda in the book of Acts, which is the next book after John, but was actually written by the same guy who wrote Luke. Judas buys a field with the blood money he got for betraying Jesus, where he falls headlong and his body bursts open and his intestines spill out.
Right, I remember that,
It doesn't say he hung him. So the version we think of is he hung himself so hard his bowels broke open and his intestines came out.
I watch fail videos on the internets a lot.
Yeah.
You know, the kid on the skateboard going down the railing. That's like people on the ice falling hard.
Yeah.
Their entrails remain interior of their body. Like, how hard do you have to fall?
But it doesn't say why he fell. It doesn't say why he burst open. It just is in there. Okay.
Well, let me just say, I don't know if you guys have ever smelled a lot of nard all at once, but man, that'll rupture your abdomen.
Your spleen will shoot right out of your belly button.
So that's the end of Judas in the Bible. Obviously not the end of Judas in Christian lore.
Right.
An early church father, Papias of Hierapolis, around 130 AD, has a story about Judas that after the death of Jesus, Judas became afflicted by God's wrath. His body became so enormously bloated that he could not pass through a street with buildings on either side. His face became so swelled up that a doctor couldn't even identify his eyes. His genitals became so swollen they oozed pus and worms. Finally, he killed himself with his own hand by pouring out his innards on the ground, which stank so horribly that even 100 years later, people could still not pass by the field without holding their noses.
I do feel like I thought for a second that you were going to say that they just crossed the streams at him, and that's how you destroy when he gets that big.
So there's another version in the Gospel of Nicodemus, which is probably written in the 4th century. You'll love this one. Jesus was overcome with remorse and went home to tell his wife, who was roasting a chicken on a spit over a charcoal fire.
Jesus' wife?
Judas's wife.
Oh, okay.
So Judas said,
Mrs. Iscariot.
Yeah, Mrs. Iscariot. Judas said, he's going to kill himself because he's so terrified that when Jesus rises from the dead, he's going to punish Judas. Judas's wife says that he could no more rise from the dead than the chicken on the spit, at which point,
of course,
the chicken on the spit came back to life.
Right.
And so Judas ran and hung himself.
Bok, bok, bitch!
And from then on, it only laid over easy eggs.
And then many listeners might remember in the 1970s, there was a document found, a self-titled Gospel of Judas, dating back all the way to 220 to 340 CE, which consists of several conversations between Judas and Jesus, where Jesus
and
basically...
a U2 song.
What's that?
And a U2 song.
That's right. And it's clearly in the Gnostic tradition, so it doesn't fit in any of the other Gospels, but it definitely is an ancient document about Judas and Jesus being in cahoots about the betrayal.
Right. Huh.
And National Geographic published a translation of this Gospel, but the translation has been kind of criticized for being hyper sensationalized.
Huh.
But in any case,
it's got a very like Dumbledore Snape feel to it.
Yeah, very much so. But all this is to say that the story of why Judas had to betray Jesus in the first place is very problematic. Like you said, Uncle Mark, he chose the apostles.
Yeah.
So if he's perfect, he chose a guy who would betray him.
Yeah.
Well, the story doesn't. The story of Jesus can't work without the betrayal.
Right.
The betrayal is critical, at least to the narrative as it's told in the Bible.
Right.
So, and in Scorsese's what I thought was a very interesting film, The Last Temptation of Christ, Jesus tells him, like, Judas is his most loyal.
Yeah.
Like, he's actually a former assassin.
Right.
He's a bad dude, and so he's super loyal, like physically loyal to Jesus. He's like, you're my most loyal.
You have
disciple.
to do this terrible thing.
You have to be that. You're the one that has to do it. And he's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But he finally does it because he understands that's how it has to work.
Everything to get it set in motion, this has to happen.
Because he's got to go to the crucifixion.
Yeah, so it's problematic in the sense that what free will is there of Judas? Does he?
Right.
He either did it to betray Jesus, which had to happen for money. He did it because Satan possessed him. Which can he be blamed for that?
Right.
But he did a thing that had to happen.
He did it because of a magic chicken.
Could it be?
And now Judas also appears in Mormon lore as a justification for Mormon blood atonement. When Joseph Smith said he had a revelation that Judas did not hang himself, but he kind of took the falling down and exploding bit and said, no, he was killed when the other apostles kicked him to pieces.
Good God.
They kicked his head off. They kicked his bowels out. They kicked his genitals off. And then, of course, I've just been reading through Dante's Inferno. Judas also appears in the final circle of hell, where one of Satan's 3 heads,
The middle head.
is chewing him
forever. That's right.
Just as sort of like gum.
But you know what's crazy? It's what's in the other 2 jaws?
It's Cassius and Brutus.
Yeah, that's right. Who killed Caesar?
really?
Killed
Yeah.
Caesar.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, there's your Judas.
All right. Well, I feel betrayed.
I think I hear the cock crowing. I must go.
Moving on.
But first a kiss.
quick little makeout session, and then we'll move on.
Well, friends, that is it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you, especially if you have been in a river of bile. Send us an email, howto@howtoheretic.com.
It was a river of pus, but never mind. Or if you have betrayed anyone that you'd like to tell us about, you can tell us that on our voicemail at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986.
If you married your sibling, don't tell us about it.
You can tell Dan that on email. I'm also on Twitter at HowToHeretic. Occasionally, we're on Facebook, but not that often.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much to our patrons for everything you do.
And thanks to Cody Layton, who's recovering wonderfully after receiving his new golden penis, for editing the show.
Thanks to all of your friends for tuning in.
Bye, everybody.